Hello, Chess.com viewers. My name is Alexander Delchev, and this is the first video from the series about the Scotch game. In this video, I will go over the main ideas for white and black, and I will briefly consider all black possible moves. Then in the upcoming videos, I will analyze each of them in more detail, and I will talk about the opening traps, the instructive games, and for those who seriously consider adding the Scotch game in his opening repertoire, I can share some of my opening secrets. Now let's go. After the moves e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, white is at the crossroads. The most common opening moves are bishop to c4, the Italian, and bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. These two opening systems have something in common. White's first task is to finish the development of the bishop, then following by moves like a castle short, then playing c3, then maybe rook e1, then d4, postponing attacking the center for the more suitable moment. But a Scotch game, starting with the move d4, has a completely different approach. By attacking immediately the center, undermining the central pawn e5, black should take on d4. I don't really think there is a playable alternative to this move. Now white takes knight to d4, and the first result of fight for the center, white has achieved full control over the d4 and e4 squares. So now black has a big range of possibilities, but there are only a few of them which is giving him a fair chance to pass successfully the opening stage. Those moves are bishop to c5, which is a classical Scotch, attacking the knight on d4. Then the next move is knight to f6. This is the two main black alternatives. Then there is a bishop to b4 check, the third most common move here, and queen to h4, which is a very interesting possibility, which, by the way, is somehow, I can say this, almost refuted, as so early queen development leads to big problems for black. These four main moves I will consider separately in the next videos. And for now, I think it's good to start with the moves d6 at some, let's say, a passive move. Let's see what will white do after this move. We have a very good options here, a very big choice. We can develop the knight to c3, knight to f6, and then we have a freedom to choose between setup, the aggressive setup with the castle long, which I recommend, as this is the most aggressive way for white to continue in this pawn structure. Let's say bishop to e3, bishop to e7, then after queen to d2, castle short, and then castle long. White has a big advantage in this opposite side castling position, and his attack with f3 and g4, followed by g5, chasing the knight from f6, is much more quickly developing than black initiative on the other wing. So my advice to you is, when you have a chance to adopt and to play this option with the long castle, you should always strive, because this gives white a very strong attack. And of course, after move d6, white can play the more simple and more positional approach. Let's say knight to f6, bishop e2, bishop to e7, let's say castle, then bishop to e3, developing the bishop, rook to e8, now f4, bishop to f8, and bishop to f3. With the very simple and logical moves, white achieved a very strong centralized position, and in the future they will continue to adding pressure in the center with queen d2, rook to d1, and the main idea for white at such positions is to open the center in the suitable moment with e4, e5 break. Okay, in all these positions, black is not so big chances to create a good counterplay. So another another common move between the amateur players here is to take on d4, releasing completely the control of the center. And after queen to d4, black doesn't have any reasonable moves, because knight to f6, white will play e5, bishop from f8 cannot move because g7 is hanging. So this move is, I don't really recommend to black players, but anyway, I will look at more detail in the next videos. And let me now show you one instructive game in which white shows his potential, his attacking potential. After the move g6, which is, by the way, looking as a very reasonable way to finish development, to play bishop to g7, adding pressure on the knight on d4, white continue with the knight to c3, bishop to g7, and then preparing the lone castle with bishop e3, followed by queen d2. Then the idea is to play h4, h5, and delivering mate on the castle king. So after bishop to e3, black plays another natural move, knight to f6. But here it appears to be an opening mistake. Here, the first point to remember when you have such knight developing to f6, you always take here on c6, and after black capture, b takes c6. Now we go e5, attacking the knight, winning a tempo. A pawn e5 is very important in white attacking chances. It's cramping black position, taking advantage in space advantage. And after knight to g8, there is no other reasonable move. Says after knight h5, white will play g4, winning a piece. Knight d5 is not recommendable, as well as is losing a pawn without compensation. So after knight to g8, white continue with f4, supporting the central pawn and keeping the flexible choice between the different setups, queen to f3, bishop to c4, and maybe castle long or castle short, depending on what black is doing. Here black continue with the logical f6, but with this move black is hoping to exchange the strong central pawn and to have some relief, then to develop the knight to f6 and castle short. But here the most important moment of the game, white is sacrificing the pawn for development, play bishop to c4, taking the diagonal and keeping black king in the center. So black accept the sacrifice. There is no other reasonable move. So we go castle short, and here we are. And white is sacrificed the pawn for attack, and black has a very dangerous position. Usually such game finish very quickly. Black goes move d5 now, and very naively thinking that this move will stop our attack. But of course, after we say A, we should say B. And here, what do you think is the white best move? If you need more time, you can pause your video. Of course, knight to d5. Sacrificing a piece is taking the initiative is a very powerful way to play in chess, because you put a lot of pressure to your opponent. After c take d5, white took bishop to d5, attacking the rook. And here black made a bad move, playing rook to b8. But even after the best bishop f5, white can go queen to f3, attacking one more time the rook and preparing to go rook to d1 and taking the big lead in development and a strong attack against black king in the center. So after rook b8, try to guess the best move, how white completed his attack. Yeah, bishop to f7, and black resigned, as there is no way to defend the queen. If king e7, there will be a bishop to c5. Very short and instructive game, which demonstrate clearly white attacking potential, and that if black doesn't attack immediately the center, they're awaiting a very big danger. And now I would like to repeat the most important points of this video. So after the move d4, white is declaring a war for the center squares, and after black takes e take d4, we take knight to d4, and if black give us the time, we can continue with the knight to c3, bishop to e3, then probably bishop to c4 and castle short, or maybe queen d2 and castle long. We'll come back again to these moves in my next videos. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you back.